So you've heard about NanoWrimo and you feel like you want to dip your toes into the pool of creativity and perhaps start to write. It is November, it is that time of the month, but where do you start and what do you do? And yes, there's the website, but it's all very iffy. Well, I've found someone who has done this so many times that, well, it's just insane. And they've come to talk to you about why you should, or maybe shouldn't, do NanoWrimo. Hello and welcome to this completely opportunistic video. It was not planned. It has nothing to do with game mastering whatsoever. It is simply because I met this amazing person, Julianna, who is doing NanoWrimo and was so enthusiastic. It's like, well, I have to do it this year. I have to do it this year. So I was like, well, if she can inspire me, maybe she can inspire you and give us some insight into some of the little bits and pieces. So Julianna, welcome. And thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
Hi everyone. And thank you so much for having me here a second time.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. So how many times have you done NanoWrimo?
So this year is going to be my 10th year.
Your 10th year. So you have...
In a row.
In a row. Okay. So why do you do it?
Whew, broad questions. Okay. So when I was little, manga, anime were my world. Mm-hmm. And I always wanted to, make my own. But I'm a storyteller before anything else. And I found out that I had so many stories that there was absolutely no way that I could get them all out there if I didn't actually, diverse a little and go, well, maybe I should do a little bit of writing. Maybe I should do a screenplay. I don't know, just different things. And so I wanted to learn how to write books. That wasn't something that I could do before. And Nano was one of those things where you either do it or don't do it. But if you don't do it, you're going to be behind and there's no way to catch up. Although there is. That's a secret. But it was a beautiful way to start. And I've learned so much with these 10 years.
Okay. So it really is about just learning and developing. Do you think that you're still learning and developing after all these years?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like I said, because I started with comics, the way that I used to write was completely different. And another thing that I think I didn't mention yet is that English is my second language. I learned it when I was 9 years old to 12. That's when I was living in the US. So after that, I actually came back to Brazil and I still live here. And I've had other experiences in the US and other countries where I could speak English. But other than that, everything else became in Portuguese. And so I knew how to talk because of my time spent there, but I didn't know how to write properly. And I kind of mentioned that to you before, but all I could do was write, dialogue. I could write very, very small things. And so during these years, I not only learned how to do everything else that I needed for prose, but also, I'm still learning how to put stories together, how to do everything that you need for a finished book.
Right. So you write in English, not in Portuguese.
In English, yeah.
Wow. Okay, and is that just something that you challenge yourself with, or what prompted that?
I think when I was 9 years old living in the US, I was meeting some of the friends that were going to be, like the friends. Because when you're a little bit younger, you can actually, you can have a couple of friends in school, but it gets lost. I'm also a military brat, so a lot of the people that I knew are gone. And when I was living in the US, a lot of my friends were friends that stuck, right? Mm. And so I was writing actually with my best friend. And the only way I could share was if I kept doing it in English. And so it just became kind of my thing. And it was a really, really good way to keep with the language, even back here.
Absolutely. I can certainly testify to that. Curious little side fact. So my first book, it's not a work of literature. It's an instruction book on telling stories and things. That book, the only other language that you can buy that book in happens to be Portuguese. I had a team of Brazilian guys get hold of me and say, "Can we translate your book?" So they translated into Portuguese. So there we go. I think that's a lovely connection. So all right. So what kind of stories do you write? Have you written lots of different genres and things over the years, or is it always sort of said manga or anime, but even those have got different genres within them. So what is your sort of story on it?
I honestly step all over the place. I like dipping into different, like pots or whatever. I will say that my very, very favorite is anything for kids. I think that I kept that with me over the years. So I love writing middle grade, picture books, young adult, which is a big one nowadays. But I do have a couple of books that I noticed that they need to be older. And so I'm not afraid to also step into some of the newer categories like new adult, but not too much more than that. I think that certain books are just not for me. And of course, graphic novels. I like staying with kids. I think that to me, it's always been like the best one. But I also don't like to limit myself. And I would like to one day write games and write different things as well. And so, yeah, pretty broad.
Just bursting with creativity. I absolutely love it. I think it's awesome. And so for Nano, it's a short story. It's 50,000 words. So it's a novella, I suppose. What do you find you write in those? Is it also just varied, or is that more young adult type stuff that you write for NanoWrimo?
Yeah, so for the past couple of years, I think the only change that I really did is that I usually go between mostly middle grade and young adult. And then most of my stories are fantasy because I adore fantasy. It's literally like what calls to me the most. But what I found out also during these years, and I do want to be published one day. So I actually had to get out there and figure out, like how to do these things. And so certain types of book need to be a certain length. So it's funny. And I think I mentioned to you this last time, the first time I did Nano, I didn't know what 50,000 words were. I thought they were just like a random number that they selected. And so I actually didn't get out of like my character leaving the town. It was very like, oh, I don't know, she just has to be here. But what am I doing now? And over the years, I actually learned how to structure and how to do all of that other stuff. So now most of my books are actually, I go a little past that number. And I think the first book in the series that I'm currently writing is actually 72K.
Absolutely. So on that, then you were talking about sort of learning the rules and the way that NanoWrimo is structured. We have a question from the community, is with your different genres, you do a lot of fantasy. Is there one that you found that's easier to write within the NanoWrimo space?
Definitely fantasy. Definitely fantasy. I think it's one where you can kind of just go without actually having to study anything, without actually having to be like, oh, what is that street called if you're writing contemporary, right? So, and a lot of it, you can just kind of like, after you're done, you can be like, phew, now I make this up to the point where it's explained in the book.
So you would go back and add in the Falls of Galarian, and then you might expand a little bit on that. Is that sort of what you...
Yeah, absolutely.
I see. Okay. Now you've spoken a little bit about your first book. Have you been published yet? I know we were talking about that a little bit last time.
I haven't been published. What I have done, like I said, I kind of studied a little bit because I do want to be published. So I've tried what they call Twitter pitching parties, where you basically go on and you say, my book is about this. You give a tiny pitch and say, this is what the book is about. It's fantasy, it's middle grade, it's this, it's that. And then you see if agents are actually, excited for it, if they want to pick it up. I have gotten interest from very, very few people, but after that, you can actually send it to them and see if they will be your agent. I haven't done that yet because I found out that my book needed another pass. And when you do that, they want it to be absolutely perfect. So I'm hoping for next year.
There you go. Absolutely. Okay. So this year, you've already started the process because NanoWrimo had October for development. Is that correct?
Well, you do that if you want to. They call it Nanoprep, but you don't have to. I
Thank
actually,
goodness.
exactly. I mean, we do. I have a group of writers that I talk to, and we actually do sprints. We do a couple of different things. It's an open Slack chat for anybody who wants to join. And so basically, a couple of us, we like to get together and actually be like, let's prep. But for me, and I've answered this in another place, I actually don't prep like other people because part of my prepping is actually art. So what happens is once I'm done writing the book, like another month, I can just sit down and, like draw what the characters look like, what the place looks like. So that's part of my prepping. And I also have a bunch of notes on my phone. Don't look at my phone. It's a mess.
Interesting. And do you ever go back then, you sort of draw the character and then go back to your writing and say, well, actually, this is what they said, but I feel they should say this now because okay, so it is a back and forth process.
Yeah, if you want to be published, if you actually want to get the book out there, and this is really important. I think this is one of the best things that I ever learned with Nano. It's that your first draft sucks. It doesn't matter. You could be the best writer in the world and it's still going to suck. You're still going to need to edit. And I think the first 5-6 years, because I wrote by myself, because I worked by myself, I didn't know. I thought that everybody else had these beautiful polished books that came out the first time. And I was just sitting there oh my God, this doesn't make any sense. Why are you even trying to do this for 10 years? And then I actually went to an event and I met other writers and I saw that I'm not the only one. And that made me feel like I can do this.
Right. That's good to know. That's absolutely good to know. I mean, I know when I used to do script writing for television, part of your contract was a 5-draft payment and you got paid for every draft, and the minimum was a 5-draft payment. So they knew that even though you had an outline or you had your first script, it was going to get rewritten 5 times. And
That's
that
amazing.
you got paid at each new rewrite. And the first rewrite was usually just clean up and you as the writer getting happy. Then the second rewrite was the producer going, well, I think the character should actually be it should be a female or should be a male, or we should do this, we should do that. And then the director would come in and you'd rewrite it again. So absolutely that whole idea of rewrite, improve, rewrite, and improve. Okay. So how do you then test your idea? Because, I mean, I've got an idea in my head for this year, right? And I kind of played around with it, and I'm like, okay, so it's cool, and it's this, and it's that. And then I was like, but it would be cooler if that happened. But now I'm kind of going, I don't know which one is better, or even if it's worth writing 50,000 words about. So how do you test?
Oh, man. I think I'm a little different on that side of things. I really don't pick up a story unless I'm incredibly excited about it. I think the closest that has ever happened to me in that sense is that I was once, I think it was 4 nanos ago. Yeah, about that much. The book that I was writing, the main character, I loved the story. I loved everything about it, but the main character was awful. And he was meant to be awful. He was actually supposed to start out really bad and get better as the book went, because that's a really, really big thing with stories. If your character starts and ends the same, you failed, right? Mm-hmm. And so that character, I hated him. I absolutely did, but I loved everything else. And that was actually the first nano that I struggled so much that on the very, very last day, I still had 12K words to write. And I did it in 12 hours and I almost made my eyes bleed.
I can imagine.
But I did it.
Wow, that's dedication. That's dedication. I mean, I can write a lot of words, but when I was working to word count, if I can do 2,000 words in a day, I'm happy. But 12, my goodness. Okay, so but you did finish it though, even though you were not happy with the character. Okay,
Yeah.
and you won't start writing until you are absolutely excited about the idea.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't do prep, like I mentioned, but there is kind of like a mental prep when you're thinking about the story, where you're thinking where it kind of wants to go.
Right.
And then if you're excited about where it's going, it's like, okay, cool. It doesn't mean that during the month, if you're actually writing, and there's going to be days where you're going to be like, you know what, I don't want to write. And that's actually normal. It might not even have to do with the story itself. But if you aren't at least a little bit excited, then I do know that a lot of writers that, I'm friends with or that I just know, like they will switch stories. And so having a backup, it's totally okay. And we do say this as well, like if you aren't feeling it, don't push yourself, like don't kill yourself to get something done. It's bad. And I often tell people, like, don't be me.
Don't write 12,000 words in a day. There you go. Okay. So on this whole idea, you don't prep, but another community question is, how do you organize your ideas and keep track of your plots and places? Do your stories tend to be quite focused, or how do you manage all the info?
Well, Nano can actually be used for you to get your ideas down. And that's really important because with the story that I mentioned, where I actually didn't like the main character, I knew the story up to a certain point. The rest was actually like, I had no idea. And that actually stops a lot of people from writing because they'll sit there, they'll stare at the blank page and they'll be like, what now? And so when you have Nano, like pressuring you to be like, don't fall behind, you kind of just go like, you know what, maybe I just want these characters to fight. And maybe because you wrote them fighting, something else is going to open up.
Right.
And I know that you guys can't see it, but I actually, pointed it to the right place. So I have this little thing right here. I pointed kind of to the space where it's actually like a couple of rules that I like about writing. They call it the Pixar rules. And one of them really is that, like, if you get stuck and you don't know what you're doing, just write what wouldn't happen and maybe what would happen will pop up. So like there's a couple of little tricks that you can do to kind of get yourself going. But to me, the pressure of don't fall behind was what gets me going. And like I said, my first draft, it's going to be crap. Yeah. I'm okay with that. But I'm going to figure out so much that the next time I come back, then I'm going to be like, now I know what I'm doing. And that's so important.
There you go. We have on our channel, we talk, when we get to the writer's block, we always say, insert a giant banana. Which is ridiculous, but the concept is exactly the same. It's like, I don't know what should happen next. Okay, well, put a giant banana wherever the characters are. There's suddenly a giant banana. Where did it come from? What are they going to do with a giant banana? And it unlocks you from panicking about what's going to happen next to going, well, where did the banana? Is it an alien banana? Is it a magic banana? Why would there be a banana here? And how are they going to eat it? Are they going to But yes, I get that. Absolutely. Okay. So, I'll try and find a link, folks, for the rules you were talking about. Are they available online? Those rules?
Yeah.
Okay.
They came out a couple of years ago. I think one of the writers for Pixar mentioned it. And so actually the one that I do have up on my wall was a free version that somebody put up so you could print it. And I've had it for years. It's really cool.
And they do know how to tell very good stories. So I do like that. Okay, so that's that question. What are you most proud of in terms of NanoWrimo?
So last year, and I did mention that I actually had 2 years that were kind of crazy. Last year was the first year that I was going to give up and that I wasn't going to do it. It was a couple of things, like so many things happened at the same time. And I was just like, you know what? I won 8 of them. there's no problem. I can actually, like take this year off and be like, I have other things that I need to do. It's something that I used to think about a lot because, my friends would talk about like, once you become a writer, you're going to have to write whenever they want you to. And so Nano won't be a thing anymore. So, we were thinking about that. But last year I was just like, you know what, I'm not going to do this. And unfortunately, one of my college professors, who was my favorite, he passed away. And when that happened, I got this huge kick in the butt where I basically had that feeling of, you know what, somebody who loved to create, somebody who was creating for a very long time can no longer create. I can't just stand by and not do anything. And so last year, I do think takes the cake for the craziest thing I've done, because I actually wrote the 50K in 10 days.
10 days. Now, that was something that you said. You said you can't catch up, but you can. There's a secret. Can you share the secret?
Literally put everything else aside and go crazy.
Just do it. Just finish it. Absolutely.
Just gotta do it.
Now, you mentioned that you have some writing support that you guys do on Slack. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So in 2017, I went to Japan first. I saved a lot of money and went there. And on my way back, I had to stop by California to break, because otherwise it's 26 hours, by the way.
Oh, yes.
That's a long flight. So I stopped there because I went to an event that NanoWrimo used to put on, and it was called the Night of Writing Dangerously. And so basically it's this beautiful, beautiful ballroom that they used to fill up with writers, and everybody would sit there and write. And that was the first time that I was actually, experienced talking to different writers. And right after that, I actually went to another writing conference, and I met some incredible people there. And a couple of them we stayed in touch with. And then we decided to come together, and, witches are pretty big. So we made a coven.
Nice. Okay.
And we became the Writing Witches. And after a little while, we actually got someone else to join us, and it became like this really cool, group. And then we were like, you know what, maybe we should do something for other writers. We should share the knowledge. We should do as much as we can with other people as well. And so we made a different Slack channel, and we have a Twitter, and we started sharing people and being like, hey, if you like to write what we do, if you just want buddies, if you want somebody to comment on, your manuscript, switch it, do all of these things. We were like, we're here for you. And that group has been going, this is our second year doing it. It's our anniversary in October, and it's been wonderful. And we've been learning so much from each other. And we even had one author who got an agent. So some success stories too. It's been really cool.
That's fantastic. That's absolutely fantastic. So, what are some of the mistakes that you've made?
That's a really long list.
Okay, what are some of the most important mistakes that you've made?
I think in the beginning, it really was letting myself get stuck with the very first words like that you put down. I think that's a very rookie thing that we all do. It's not like I'm not better than anybody, but you just sit there and you're just like, no, the first words have to be perfect. The opening. And if you don't allow yourself to step away from that, you're going to get stuck. And so, yeah, the first couple of years, that was huge for me. I think even the year where I did write, so many words at once, I remember being stuck on the first page for such a long time. And then a week went by and you're like, what are you doing? That's a really, really big mistake. Also, a second one would be not trusting yourself and not trusting your story. I think that on a day-to-day, everybody, some people are going to be there to make you feel better about yourself, and some people are going to be there to destroy you. And if you're one of the people who is there to destroy yourself, that's bad. That's really bad. And I did that. I did that for such a long time, especially because my background is art. One of the things that I did was you're an artist, you're not a writer, you're terrible, you're not going to be able to do this. And getting over that little voice was a huge hurdle. And I still have it. Don't get me wrong. It's always going to be there, but just that's a mistake. Don't let it. You're amazing. You're going to do it. It's okay.
There you go. That's brilliant. That's lovely. That's absolutely fantastic. Well, I wish you the best of luck in your nano writing. And yes, I'm going to give it my best shot. I really am. So fingers crossed that we'll get there. Hopefully you will be inspired, having listened to Julianna's amazing story, that you will participate as well. So obviously our Discord channel, we've got the creative writing channel in there. Join us. We'll be talking about that stuff. And hopefully maybe we can get some links to share with folks, Julianna, from your Slack group as well. Or is it closed group or are you?
Oh no, open to anybody. As long as you're nice.
They watch my channel. They're probably nice people. I hope so.
Absolutely.
All right. Anyway, folks, yes, this was just a thing. I met Julianna and I went, I have to share this wonderful person's creativity with you guys. And so hopefully it will inspire you. Until next time, of course, I wish you and yours the very happiest of writing.